Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam, ala Imam al-Anbiya wal Mursaleen, Sayyidina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa ansarihi wa azwajihi wa dhurriyyatihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd, beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to this another of our sittings. Today we shall be continuing with the Tafseer of Surah Al-Furqan. Some people ask, how long will the Tafseer of Surah Al-Furqan take? I don't know. Can't answer this question. Allahu Alam, how many sittings it will take. I hope that the admins are given the titles to each dars, because each dars is a different title. I hope yesterday was given a title, because each sitting is a different title. The last time we were here, we stopped at ayah 30. Please do not PM me because it will freeze up my computer. The last time we were here, we stopped at ayah 30. The Holy Prophet said, Allah Ta'ala said that the Prophet will say, وقال الرسول يا ربي إن قومي اتخذوا هذا القرآن مهجورا. And the Messenger Muhammad will say to Allah, O my Lord, verily my people deserted this Quran, neither listened to it nor acted on its laws and its teachings. So this is a big concern for the Prophet ﷺ, that his ummah will desert the Quran, will abandon the Quran. Now, how can we abandon the Quran? You abandon the Quran by not reading it. The person taking notes, please ask the question, how can we abandon the Quran? And to learn the Quran and forget it is a crime in Islam. You're not allowed to learn the Quran and then forget the Quran. How is it that you abandon the Quran? When you write, how is it that you abandon the Quran? It has to be in large font, not small font like you do, medium font. It has to be in a larger font because it's a subtitle. So please write the question again and make it a larger font because it's a subtitle. How can we abandon the Quran? I do not want it in that small font, I want it in a larger font, because it's considered to be a subtitle. You abandon the Quran. How can we abandon the Quran? You abandon the Quran by not reading it. That's one way. Number one, by not reading it. Number two, by refusing to memorize it. By refusing to read it. Number two, by refusing to memorize it. Now, one day, Khalid ibn Walid led some people in Salah, and he read some parts of the Quran. He was the Imam who led the people in Salah. He read some parts of the Quran. And then he said, Jihad kept me away from memorizing the Quran. This is the Tariq of Ibn Asakir. Can the admins bring me that hujjah? Abdullah ibn Jahmi said, a man whom I trust told me that Khalid ibn Walid led the prayers in Hira city. Hence he read verses from different chapters, different surahs. Then he looked at the people and said, Jihad kept me busy from learning Quran. Tariq ibn Asakir, volume 16, page 250. So, many people say, why Khalid ibn Walid didn't memorize many surahs like the other Sahabas? You have to understand the position of Khalid ibn Walid. When he took Shahada, the burden of being an army general who led the Muslims in different battles, it came into his lap unexpectedly. Because the Rasul sent his Sahabas at the expedition of Mu'tah to fight the Romans, and he said the first person to lead the Muslims in battle, the general, will be Zayd ibn Haritha, my adopted son. If Zayd is killed, then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. If Ja'far is killed, Abdullah ibn Rawaha. All three generals died, one after the other, because it was 3,000 Muslims fighting, I'm sorry, 30,000, approximately 30,000 Muslims fighting 250,000 Romans. The ratio was like that. So the Muslims, they rallied behind Khalid and said, the only person who can help us in this plight is Khalid, and he was a new Shahada. And he accepted. When they nominated him to take over, he accepted. And the Prophet did not say who should take over after Abdullah ibn Rawaha died. Abdullah ibn Rawaha was from the Ansars, and the two first to die were of Al-Muhajirun. And he displayed his skillful, his intelligence. He was the only man in history who has never lost a battle, neither before Islam or after Islam. So when he led the people in Salah, and he read some short passages of the Quran, he said, Jihad kept me away from memorizing the Quran. What he meant is that when he took Shahada, when he embraced Islam, the burden of having to take the Muslims to battle, it came right into his lap. It came right on his shoulders. So he didn't have time to spend in the masjid memorizing long. He was too busy on the battlefield fighting the kuffar. The third way in which you do not. Number 3, you refuse to ponder on the Quran. When you refuse to ponder on the Quran, you are guilty of neglecting the Quran. You deserted the Quran, you abandoned the Quran. And the Prophet complained to Allah that my ummah have abandoned the Quran, deserted the Quran. Number 3, by you not pondering on the Quran. So Allah said in Surah 47 verse 24, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Won't you contemplate on the Quran, or your hearts are wrapped, your hearts are sealed? So this is the other way in which you have deserted the Quran. You read the Quran, but you refuse to ponder on the meanings of the Quran. If you don't ponder on the meanings of the Quran, you might be a Hafiz and you still smoke weed or have a girlfriend. You were told by Allah Ta'ala to ponder on the Quran. The other way you abandon the Quran is you refuse to ponder over the Quran. You refuse to ponder over the meanings of the Quran. Ponder on the Quran means you ponder on, put in brackets, you refuse to ponder over the meaning of the Quran, the meanings. And Allah said, Afala, Surah 47 verse 24, Afala yatadabbarun Quran am ala qulubin aqfalha. Won't you contemplate on the Quran, or your hearts are sealed, your hearts are wrapped? You refuse to ponder over the meaning of the Quran. Okay, shukran. Number 4, you ignore the rules of tajweed. So not only do you refuse to read the Quran, when you read the Quran, you didn't pay attention to tajweed. Tajweed means to beautify. Now, the people in this room, if I ask you what is qalqala, can you tell me what is qalqala? If I say what is qalqala, the rule of tajweed called qalqala, what is qalqala? Do you know what is qalqala? If I say what is idgham, there are two types of idgham: idgham bil ghunna and idgham bi ghayr ghunna. Idgham to assimilate with ghunna, and idgham without ghunna. Do you know that rule? Do you know ikhfa? Do you know ikhfa? Do you know idgham? Do you know idhar? These are rules of tajweed. Now, I did not teach you the rules of tajweed in this room, but maybe I have to teach you the rules of tajweed. These things you should go to your local sheikhs and learn, your local masjid. You cannot use Paltalk to replace your local sheikhs. And you are allowed to go to a Goofy Sufi to learn how to recite the Quran properly. The rules of tajweed: ikhfa, idgham, qalqala. maybe 75% of the people in the room don't know what is qalqala. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. These 5 letters, when you recite them and there's a sukoon over them, you jerk it. Like, alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa. There's a sukoon over the dal, yajidika. You jerk the dal. That's called the rules of qalqala. So by you not learning the rules of tajweed, you ignore the Quran. That's one way you ignore the Quran. You do not learn the rules of tajweed. You need to go to your local sheikh, your local imam. He doesn't have to be a sheikh, he can be an imam, to teach you the rules of tajweed. Have a study circle for ladies and get a woman who is skillful in reciting the Quran to teach you the rules of tajweed. Ikhfa, idhar, idgham, qalqala. Idgham with gunna and idgham without gunna. Now, I did not teach the rules of tajweed in this room. There are many things in this room I did not teach. I did not teach asbab an-nuzul, the causes of revelation. I did not teach the abrogated verses of the Quran. I did not teach usul al-fiqh. There are many subjects I haven't taught in this room, which I have to teach in the future. So not because you come here every day and you hear different topics, there are many more things about Islam that you were not taught in this room. I didn't teach Mustalah al-Hadith. Well, a sheikh is teaching you that from Azhar, Authentic Tawhid 4. He's teaching Mustalah al-Hadith. But there are many things that you haven't learned so far in this room. So don't think Islam is only a few subjects. Islam is vast. And if all the trees should become pens and the seas become ink, and you write about Islam, the seas will dry up, the 7 seas will dry up, and the pens would have been exhausted, and you did not write all the knowledge about Islam. So not because you come here every day and you hear a different topic every day, you think, oh, that's it. I've learned everything I need to know. That's not the case. I haven't taught you many subjects. I haven't taught you Mustalah al-Hadith. I haven't taught you Usul al-Fiqh, how to weigh the evidence. I haven't taught you Ulum al-Quran, the science of the Quran. I haven't taught you the abrogated verses of the Quran. I haven't taught you Asbab an-Nuzul, why Allah revealed each ayah in the Quran. There are many topics I haven't taught you, because maybe time doesn't permit. But in the future you'll learn, inshallah. In the future we can cover these topics if you have the patience. Because I realize you like Aqidah. You like Aqidah and Tafseer. Because you want to know what is Kufr, what is Islam, because you don't want to die as a Kafir. That's why you like Aqidah. You like Aqidah because you don't want to die as a Kafir. And you like when another group is refuted. The Goofy Sufi, the Mad Madkhalis, the Shady Shiites. You like to hear refutation. But Islam is vast and all the other topics have to be covered. My only concern is, will you fall asleep when I teach the other topics? You like Aqidah so much, will you fall asleep when other topics are covered? So the other way you ignore the Quran is to refuse to learn the rules of Tajweed. And Tajweed means to beautify. The fifth way you ignore the Quran is to ignore its commandments. To ignore the commandments of the Quran. To ignore the commandments of the Quran. The Quran says don't drink alcohol, so you're not allowed to drink alcohol. And those who drink alcohol, they have no salah for 40 days and 40 nights. The Quran says don't dabble in zina, you don't do zina. The Quran said when you lend money and borrow money, write it down and call 2 witnesses. So don't lend your money to people until you have 2 witnesses to write it down. Because some Muslims are fake, they're hypocrites, they won't pay you back your money. So when you don't follow the commandments of the Quran, you are ignoring the whole Quran. He, the Prophet Muhammad, was the walking Quran. He, the Rasul, was the walking Quran, and you should always try to be the walking Quran, like the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The other way you ignore the Quran, you prefer to listen to music and poetry over the Quran. You prefer to listen to music and poetry more than the Quran. This is the other way you are guilty of ignoring the Quran. Surah 31 verse 6. Allah said, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. There are people who purchase senseless pastime. And of mankind is he who purchases idle speech, idle talks, music and singing, to mislead men from the path of Allah without knowledge, and take it as a way of mockery. Now, I debated a Parvezi, and the Parvezi quoted this ayah and said, Allah is talking about the hadith of Muhammad. The hadith of Muhammad is no good because it takes you away from Quran. This is how evil the Parvezi is. This ayah is talking about music, and he said, no, it's not music, it's talking about hadith. We shouldn't follow hadith because hadith takes us away from Quran. Look how evil the Parvezi is. And we have done a series called Jokers in the Pack. And we exposed the Saudi Salafis and the Goofy Sufis and the Brahmins and the Parvezis. Parvezis, they are the Sunnah rejectors. The Sunnah rejectors. So when they are told that they were exposed, they are going to come to debate. Okay, shukran. Yes. Why did Allah reveal Surah 31 verse 6? وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ لِيُضِلَّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. There are people who purchase senseless pastime. A Kafir of Mecca took some Persian girls to Mecca to recite poetry, singing and to sing songs, singing girls. And he said to the people of Mecca, don't listen to Muhammad, don't listen to the Quran, come and listen to the poetry of these beautiful Persian girls. I've taken them all the way from Persia to recite poetry for you. So when he took the singing girls from Persia to compete with the Quran, to take people away from the Quran, Allah revealed Surah 31 verse 6. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْتَرِي لَهْوَ الْحَدِيثِ. There are people who purchase senseless pastimes, music and poetry, to lead others away from the path of Allah and to make a mockery. To make a mockery of Quran and Sunnah. That is called Asbab al-Nuzul, causes of revelation, the reason why Allah Ta'ala sent the Quran down. Allah revealed Surah 6 because a man brought women from Persia and wanted to take away men from listening to Quran. Yes, that is the reason why Allah revealed Surah 31 verse 6. So the Lahw al-Hadith is talking about music. A Parvezi will tell you, who rejects the Sunnah, the ayah is talking about the Hadith of Muhammad, that you should ignore the Hadith of Muhammad because it will take you away from Quran. This is how evil a Parvezi is. They put a spin on the ayah. Another way for you to ignore the Quran is not to believe in it, to reject it outright. To reject it outright. A Parvezi will tell you to ignore the Hadith of Muhammad because it will take you away from Quran. Yes, that is the Aqidah of the Parvezi. And we have debated many groups in the other room, cancers in the body of the Ummah. People will always come to debate. Because when they were told that they were exposed as a cancer in the body of the Ummah, they are going to come to debate to save their face, to save face. So you can expect the only people left to debate is the Asha'ira. They have to come forward for a debate because they were exposed as a joker in the pack. They need to come forward to be debated. We debated a Madkhali, a Saudi Salafi, from a room called Authentic Salafiyah, and we told him that the leaders did kufr when they joined the UN. He said to us, Muhammad did the same thing. Because when he signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, It's like joining the UN. He accused the Prophet Muhammad of doing kufr. That's how evil a Saudi Salafi is. What can you expect from a Saudi Salafi? A Saudi Salafi is a 5-star kafir. Salah behind them is batil. And if you do not know that they are zanadiqa, heretics, that means you don't know anything about Islam. You are called unsuspecting Muslim. If you do not know that a madkhali is outside the fold, that means you don't know anything about your religion. You are like the Christians who are jahil about your religion. Now, how can you not know when they say the greatest jihad is to kill the mujahideen? Shaikh Al-Furqan passed the fatwa. It is halal to snitch on the Muslims. To dismantle the Sharia of Muhammad is minor kufr, not major, minor kufr. All the mujahideen are khawarij and terrorists, and the greatest jihad is to kill the mujahideen. How can people have this aqidah and you do not know that they were the greatest enemies of Islam? And Mike can hear me? Okay, shukran. So the other way you desert the Quran, because Allah told you that He, Muhammad, is worried that his ummah deserted the Quran. The other way you desert the Quran is not to believe in the Quran. Not to believe in it. Tell me the name of the deviant group and I'll tell you which ayah of the Quran they don't believe in. Just tell me the name of the group and I'll tell you which ayah they reject faith in. The Baraylis, who believe that Muhammad is alive in the grave, they don't believe in Surah 39 verse 30. إِنَّكَ مَيِّتْ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. You, Muhammad, shall die and all your Sahabas will die with you. The Asha'ira, who don't believe Allah is above the Arsh, they don't believe in Surah 20 verse 5. Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. Ar-Rahman al-Arsh istawa. The Madkhalis who don't believe to dismantle the Sharia is a major issue. They don't believe in Surah Ma'idah verse 60, where Allah said, I turned the Jews into apes and swine when they dismantled my Sharia in the time of Prophet David. A Madkhali wants to insinuate that Allah was overreacting. The Asha'ira. The Asha'ira. Tell me the name of the group and I'll tell you which ayah they don't believe in. The Shiites, who accuse Aisha of having an affair, or they claim that their Imams know when they are going to die and they choose when to die and they don't die unless it's their will. They don't believe in Surah 31, Surah Luqman, the very last ayah, which is ayah 34, where Allah said, no soul knows in what land it shall die. Surah 31 verse 34. No soul knows in what land it shall die. The Shady Shia said, our Imams, they know when they are going to die, they choose when to die, and they don't die unless it's their will. Or they don't believe in Surah 24 verse 11, where Allah said Aisha didn't have an affair. Tell me the name of the deviant group and I can tell you which verse of the Quran they don't believe in. The Mu'tazilites, how can we leave them out? They claim that Allah's Arsh means the glory of Allah. Allah's Arsh is not a concrete noun, something you can see and touch. Allah's Arsh, it means the glory of Allah. What dodgy Aqidah is that? What about Surah 69 verse 17? You don't believe in that ayah, Mr. Mu'tazila. Surah 69 verse 17. وَيَحْمِلْ أَرْشَ رَبِّكَ فَوْقَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ ثَمَانِيَةٌ. 8 strong angels shall carry the throne of Allah on the day of judgment. If the throne of Allah was an abstract noun, not a concrete noun, why it takes 8 angels to carry the throne of Allah on the day of judgment, Mr. Mu'tazila? How do you answer this ayah? Tell me the name of the deviant group and I can tell you which verse of the Quran they don't believe in. The Prophet feared that the Ummah will desert the Quran, not to believe in the Quran, like Allah told you in Surah 25, Surah Al-Furqan. He, Muhammad, feared that the Ummah will desert the Quran. Surah 25 verse 30. Exactly what the Prophet feared has come to pass. The Qadianis, how could we leave them out? They don't believe in Surah Ahzab verse 40, where Allah said Muhammad is the last of the prophets. The Qadianis, they don't believe in Surah Ahzab verse 40, where Allah said he, Muhammad, is Khatamun Nabiyeen, the last of the prophets. There is no prophet after Muhammad. ما كان محمد أبا أحد من رجالكم ولكن رسول الله وخاتم النبيين. Muhammad is not the father of any one of you men. He is a messenger of Allah and the last of the prophets, the seal of the prophets. Every deviant group is guilty of rejecting verses of the Quran. Not just one verse. They are guilty of rejecting many, many verses of the Quran. So don't think it's just one verse. The Shiites reject faith in Surah 15 verse 9. Surah 15 verse 9. Inna nahnu nazzalna adh-dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidhun. Verily we have revealed the Quran and we are protecting the Quran. Because they claim the Quran is corrupted. Allah broke His promise to protect the Quran. So don't think it's only one verse they reject faith in. They reject faith in many, many, many verses. The only reason why I want to stop here is because I don't want to digress. As for the Mu'tazilas who claim Iblis was an angel, they don't believe in Surah 18 verse 50. Surah 18 verse 50. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. Remember when your Lord said to the angels, bow down to Adam, they all bow down except Iblis. He was a jinn, so he rebelled against the commandment of his Lord. Surah 18 verse 50. كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. He was a jinn. So because he was a jinn, his rebellious nature got the better of him and he rebelled against the commandment of his Lord. How can you tell us Iblis was an angel? Mr. Mu'tazila, that's your Aqidah. Iblis was an angel, when Allah said he was a jinn. So when the Rasul was worried that his ummah will desert the Quran, what Muhammad meant, they will not believe in the Quran properly. Even Zamakhshari, a very famous scholar, in his tafsir, he said Iblis was an angel. Zamakhshari, a very famous scholar, in his tafsir, he said Iblis was an angel. Why? Because he was a Mu'tazila. What else do you expect from a Mu'tazila? Zamakhshari, a very famous scholar, and his tafsir is considered a masterpiece. So if he was a Mu'tazila, why the scholars read his tafsir? And they consider his tafsir a masterpiece. All the scholars have his tafsir in their house. And he was a Mu'tazila. And they said his tafsir is a masterpiece. The reason for that is because they take the good. They take the good from his tafsir, that's why. The reason why they read his tafsir is because they take the good. Mu'tazilite, yes, he was a Mu'tazilite and his tafsir was a masterpiece. And the reason why they read his tafsir is because they take the good from his tafsir. And they abandon his mistakes. So don't think that the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they only took knowledge from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's not the case. They took their knowledge from Mu'tazilas and Asha'ira. The only people they didn't take knowledge from was the Shia. But they took knowledge from Mu'tazila and Asha'ira. But they take the good from them and leave the bad. The reason why Zamakhshari's tafsir is considered a masterpiece is because his tafsir is based upon language. So when you read his tafsir, he tells you where is the noun, where is the pronoun, where is the verb, where is the adverb, where is the adjective. So if you are an expert in the Arabic language and you want to progress, then you need his tafsir, because it is based upon language. That's why his tafsir is a masterpiece. You cannot read his tafsir for Aqidah. If you want Aqidah, you have to read Ibn Kathir. For Aqidah, you stick to Ibn Kathir. And you don't read any other tafsir for Aqidah except Ibn Kathir. And to understand the language, then you go for Zamakhshari. If the scholar belongs to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, like Allama Shinqaiti, then you can take Aqidah from him. If the scholar is Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, like Ibn Taymiyyah, then you can take Aqidah from him. If the scholar doesn't belong to Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, you can take fiqh from him, fiqh, and you can take the Arabic language from him, the grammar, but not Aqidah. You are only allowed to take Aqidah from scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. As for the other branches of knowledge, you can take it from the deviants. If a man believes Allah is everywhere, you can go to him to learn Arabic, how to teach you how to speak Arabic fluently. If a man believes that the Prophet is alive in the grave, you can go to him to teach you Tajweed. Tajweed means the art of reciting the Quran with the rules. So don't limit yourself to the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because you don't have enough scholars to take from at this moment. We are short of scholars. You can learn branches of knowledge from other scholars as long as you don't take your Aqidah from them. So your local scholars in the masjid, you can go to them to teach you how to recite the Quran properly. As long as you don't take Aqidah from them, you are good to go. Even the scholars in the past, don't think that they only took knowledge from scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. No, they took knowledge from deviants. Imam Bukhari used to take hadith from Khawarij. Did you know that? Or this is news to you? Did you know that Imam Bukhari used to collect hadith from Khawarij? Because when a Khawarij would teach you a hadith, he would never lie. Because they believe if you lie, you go to the hellfire. So the best person to take hadith from in the time of Imam Bukhari was a Khawarij. Because they don't lie. The only people they don't take hadith from was the Shia. Because the Shiites, they lie. Their deen is based upon lies and deception, falsehood. Imam Bukhari used to take hadith from Khawarij. So don't think that the scholars of the past, they only got their knowledge from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. No, the Khawarij is not Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. They are called the dogs of Jahannam because of their extremism. Yet Imam Bukhari used to collect hadith from Khawarij. So don't make the mistake of thinking that the scholars of the past, they limited themselves to only the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. That's not the case. They took knowledge from deviants, but they took the good from the deviants and they leave the bad. Imam Bukhari didn't take Aqidah from Khawarij. He only took the hadith that they memorized. Because these Khawarij were Tabi'i. Some of them were Tabi'i. They met Ali. The Khawarij were Tabi'i. They met Ali. They fought in the camp of Ali. So they were loaded with knowledge. They met Sahabas. They met Ali ibn Abi Talib. They were with Ali fighting against Muawiyah at the Battle of Siffin. So they were loaded with knowledge. They only went astray in regards to the chapter of Kufr. They paint every Kufr with the same brush and said Kufr is Kufr. That's why they went astray. They don't realize in Islam you have major Kufr and minor Kufr. If you don't classify knowledge, you are a headless chicken like the Khawarij. They don't know there are two types of Kufr, major and minor. And the only Kufr that can take you outside the fold is major Kufr. Another mistake the Khawarij made, they think every major sin is major Kufr. Nobody explained to them Aqidah properly. When a man cheats on his wife, it's considered a major sin, but it's not major Kufr. To drink alcohol is major sin, but it's not major Kufr. Not every major sin is a major Kufr. They think every major sin is a major Kufr. That's why they make takfir on those who drink or those who commit zina. Because Tawheed wasn't explained to them properly. And when knowledge wasn't classified for you, you are nothing but a headless chicken. And because of that, any man whose books become his sheikh, the shaitan is his sheikh. Be careful of people who are self-taught. The man I debated who accused the Prophet Muhammad of doing kufr from the room Authentic Salafiyah, Hadi, who said Muhammad did the same thing like joining the UN, because when he signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, it's like joining the UN. He's self-taught. That man is self-taught. People who are self-taught are very, very dangerous, because they make up their own Islam as they go along. They think they know, but they don't know anything. Any man whose books become his sheikh, the shaitan become his sheikh. The man who I debated, and he said that Allah spoke about idle tales in Surah 31 verse 6. The idle tale that Allah said stay away from, it means the hadith of Muhammad. Stay away from the hadith of Muhammad, because the hadith will take you away from the Quran. He put a spin on the ayah. That man was also self-taught. People who are self-taught are very, very dangerous. Their hearts are filled with pride. They think they know and they don't know anything. Any man whose books become his sheikh, the shaitan becomes his sheikh. People who are self-taught are very, very dangerous. A man released a DVD on the internet and he called it Beware of Takfir, and he said that in the time of the Prophet, hypocrites existed and no one was allowed to kill the hypocrites. That man is also self-taught. Who told you hypocrites were not allowed to be killed in the time of the Prophet? What about the man who went to the Prophet and asked the Prophet a question and the Prophet gave the verdict? Then he went to Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr drove the man away. Then the man went to Omar and said, what's your opinion? Omar said, did you ask the Prophet? The man said, yes, but still I want to hear your opinion. Omar said, wait, I'll bring my opinion. And Omar went for his sword and chopped off his head and said, that's my opinion. And Omar pronounced the man a munafiq. And the Prophet saw what Omar did, and the Prophet didn't correct Omar. He kept quiet about what Omar did. When the Prophet kept quiet about Omar decapitating the head of the man, that becomes an approval. The Prophet approved. It's called hadith. When the Prophet saw something and approved, it's hadith. When Khalid ibn Walid ate a lizard, Khalid ibn Walid ate a lizard in front of the Prophet and the Prophet didn't stop him. That's called hadith. It's approved. So when the man had his head chopped off in the time of the Prophet, and the Prophet saw Omar chopping off his head and the Prophet didn't stop Omar, it's hadith. So who told you hypocrites were never killed in the time of the Prophet? And those who refused to pay zakat, Abu Bakr killed them as hypocrites. Who told you hypocrites were not killed in the time of the Prophet? You have made up your own religion. So another way the Ummah of Muhammad deserted the Quran is to refuse to believe in it, and I've given you many deviant groups, and I can tell you which verse of the Quran they don't believe in. The Parvezi, how could we leave them out? The Parvezi, they are called the Sunnah rejectors. They don't believe in Surah 3 verse 31 where Allah said, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي. Say to the people, O Muhammad, if you love Allah, follow me, Muhammad. Tell the people, if you love Allah, follow me, Muhammad. Surah 3 verse 31. So if you were a believer in the Quran, consequently you would believe in the Sunnah, because you were commanded by Allah in this ayah to follow the Sunnah. And they don't believe in Surah 16 verse 44. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Surah 16 verse 44. And we have also sent down to you, O Muhammad, the dhikr, the book, that you may explain clearly to mankind what was sent down to them. This is the ayah telling you it is compulsory on you to follow the Sunnah. So a Parvezi doesn't believe in this ayah. Tell me the name of the deviant group and I can tell you which verse of the Quran they don't believe in. Whether it is a goofy Sufi, a shady Shia, a mad Madkhali. a perverted pervasive. Tell me the name of the deviant group and I can tell you which verse of the Quran they don't believe in. The Prophet could see this coming, and because of that, Allah said in Surah 25 verse 30, he, Muhammad, is worried and he complains to Allah, my ummah deserted the Holy Quran. They claim to believe in it, but when you look at their Aqidah, they don't believe in anything of the Quran. If you reject one verse of the Quran, you are guilty of rejecting all the verses of the Holy Quran. Ayah 31, and thus we have made for every prophet an enemy among the mujrimun. وكذلك جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا من المجرمين وكفى بربك هاديا ونصيرا. We have appointed for every prophet enemies from the criminals, the kuffar. But sufficient is your Lord as a guide and a helper. So even though you the prophets have enemies, Abraham had Nimrod who would dump him in the fire and strip him naked before he dumped him in the fire. Allah is sufficient as a helper. Because when you were dumped in the fire, did the fire burn you? It did not. Allah commanded the fire to become burden, wasalaman, cold, and a source of peace for Abraham. Because Allah is sufficient as a helper. And Allah will guide your flock. Musa had Qarun as his enemy. And he paid a prostitute to say that Prophet Moses slept with her. Did Allah abandon Moses? He did not. Allah caused the earth to swallow him up, Qarun, when he tried to pull off a slander against Moses. And the reason why he paid a woman to say Moses slept with her is because anytime the slander is to do with sex, people pay attention. People will always pay attention to sex. That's why he paid the woman a large sum of money to say Moses slept with her. Not the sea, the earth. Allah made the earth swallow Qarun, not the sea. The sea, that was the Pharaoh. Qarun. The earth swallowed Qarun, but the sea swallowed the Pharaoh. Allah Ta'ala told you that all the prophets had enemies. Muhammad had Abu Lahab and Abu Jahl for his enemies. What happened to them? Abu Jahl died like a dog at the Battle of Badr. And this ayah is similar to the ayah, Surah 6, 112. Allah said in Surah 6, 112 that every prophet has his enemies. But Allah Ta'ala is sufficient to help His prophets against these enemies. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. And so we have appointed for every prophet enemies from among mankind and jinn, inspiring one another with adorned speech by way of deception. Even Muhammad had his enemies, and Allah said, Tabbat yada abi lahabiyun wa tab. Allah promised Abu Lahab the hellfire. And those who disbelieve, they say, why is not the Quran revealed to him all at once? Ayah 32. The kuffar, they say, why didn't Allah send down the Quran all at once? First, it is sent down in parts. We send the Quran down in piecemeal, in parts, in stages, that we may strengthen your heart thereby, and we have revealed it to you gradually. In stages, it was revealed to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in stages over a period of 23 years. Kuffar, you know how a kafir thinks? He wants to tell Allah who to bless. Number one, he wants to tell Allah who he should make a prophet. Number three, he wants to tell Allah how to reveal the Quran. A kafir always put his nose where it doesn't belong. He likes to interfere in matters that do not concern him. I repeat the mentality of a kafir. He wants to tell Allah who to bless, who to make rich and who to make poor. He wants to tell Allah who should become a prophet. Why didn't Allah reveal the Quran to Walid ibn Mughira, the father of Khalid ibn Walid? Why a poor orphan boy? He wants to tell Allah who to make a prophet. Number 3, he wants to tell Allah how to reveal the Holy Quran. That is the modus operandi of a kafir. He wants to tell Allah how to govern his universe. Number 1, he wants to tell Allah who to bless. He wants to tell Allah who to make a prophet. Number 3, he wants to tell Allah how he should reveal the Holy Quran. He wants to dictate to Allah the format in which Allah should reveal the Quran. That is a kafir. The kuffar also want to tell Allah how to reveal the Quran. Yes. So in Surah Al-Furqan, verse 32, Allah said, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنِ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً. Why didn't Allah send the Quran all in one go? All at once? Why is Allah revealing the Holy Quran in stages? I put it to you, a kafir wants to tell Allah who to bless. He wants to tell Allah who to make a prophet, who he should appoint as a prophet. He wants to tell Allah how to reveal the Holy Quran. I have in front of me 10 reasons why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. 10 reasons. The first reason, to make it easy to memorize. And Allah said in Surah 54 verse 17, وَيَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. We have made the Quran easy for you to memorize. That's the very first reason. The person taking notes, the subtitle is, why Allah revealed the Quran in stages or in piecemeal. Why Allah revealed the Quran in stages or in piecemeal. I have 10 reasons in front of me. To make it easy to memorize, like Allah told you in Surah 54 verse 17, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. Indeed, we have made the Quran easy for you to memorize. Had Allah revealed the Quran all at once, it would have been difficult for you to memorize. Surah Al-Qamar verse 17, indeed, we have made the Quran easy for you to memorize. The second reason, to make it easy for you to understand. In order to make it easy for you to understand. So if Allah had revealed the Quran all at once, it would have been difficult for people to understand. Surah 17, 106. Allah told you why He revealed the Quran in stages. Surah 17, 106. And it's a Quran which we have divided into parts in order that you might recite it to men at intervals. And we have revealed it in stages. Surah 17, 106. We have revealed it in stages. To recite it to the people little by little, at intervals, for it to be easy to memorize and easy to understand. Look how wise Allah is. So Allah told you in the Quran, this Quran, I sent it down in intervals to make it easy to memorize and to understand. So we have now gone into another topic which is called Ulumul Quran, the science of the Quran. In case you did not realize, we have gone into another topic called Ulumul Quran, the science of Quran. The third reason, to make it easy to obey and follow. To make it easy for the Quran to be obeyed and followed easily. To make it easy to obey and follow. Okay, shukran. Now, take for example, Khamar. Before Allah made Khamar haram, 3 ayahs came down for Khamar, and the third one made it haram. The first ayah about Khamar is Surah Baqarah 219. They ask you about Khamar and gambling. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. Baqarah 219. Because Aisha said the Arabs were addicted to Khamr and Zina. So if the Arabs were addicted to khamr and zina, how can Allah reveal one ayah telling them to stop? The first ayah came down for khamr. Allah appealed to their common sense and their rationale. يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. They ask you about khamr, intoxicant and gambling. Say in them is a great sin and some benefit for men. Some benefit for men, that there are many people who are employed in the alcohol industry and the gambling industry. It provides employment for millions of people all over the world. The alcohol industry and the gambling industry. So there are benefits in it for men. It provides employment. But the sin of them is greater than the benefit. The harm of them is greater than the benefit. So when Allah revealed this ayah, it is about khamr. Allah did not say stop drinking. Allah appealed to their rationale. So the Arabs are saying, the Sahabas are saying to themselves, if the harm is more than the benefit, why do we continue to drink? The second verse that came down about khamr is Nisa 43. Nisa 43 is the second verse that came down to address the issue of alcohol. So Allah Ta'ala said in Nisa 43, الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سقارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون. All who believe, do not approach Salah when you are in a state of intoxication, when you are drunk, until you know what you are saying. That is the second ayah talking about alcohol. Nisa 43. A person who is a munafiq will say to you, I can drink alcohol because I'm going to drink after Isha. As long as I drink alcohol after Isha, I'm good to go, because Allah said don't come to Salah when you are drunk. So I'm going to wait for Isha and then I'll go and drink after Isha with my friends. This munafiq is quoting a verse of the Quran that was abrogated. When this verse came down, the Sahabas were still drinking. Because the Arabs were addicted to alcohol and zina, Allah Ta'ala used the Quran to reform them in stages. If a man is sick and he goes to the doctor, the doctor gives him the medicine little by little, step by step, in stages. When you are addicted to zina and khamr, you are sick. So you need to be reformed, and the reformation comes in stages. That's why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. Because to tell the Arabs to give up alcohol all at once, it will be too difficult for them. Then the last ayah that talks about alcohol is Surah Ma'idah 90. Ma'idah 90. Ma'idah is Surah 5 verse 90. That is the last ayah that talks about alcohol. And this ayah means it is haram. It's now haram. So first Allah appealed to the rationale of the Arabs, their common sense, and tell them the harm of alcohol is more than the good. Then Allah said don't come to Salah when you are drunk. And then Allah said give it up, leave it off. فاجتنبوه. الذين آمنوا إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام الرجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. All who believe, intoxicants and the gambling are the evil handiworks of the shaitan, an abomination in the sight of Allah. So avoid intoxicants and gambling in order that you may be successful. Allah used the word fajtanibu. Fajtanibu means don't even come near to alcohol, much less to drink it. So you can't go into a pub and say I'm going to drink Pepsi. It's haram to be in the pub, full stop. You can't go to a pub, a shabin, a place where they drink alcohol, and say, well, I'm only going to drink Pepsi. You can't be in a pub, full stop. Don't come near to alcohol, much less to drink alcohol. Fajtanibu, stay away. So when the kuffar of Makkah complained and said, why did Allah reveal the Quran in stages? I'm saying to you, I have in front of me 10 reasons why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. When people are sick and they need to be reformed, the reformation has to come in stages. The reformation has to come in stages. When a girl takes Shahada and she is not accustomed to wearing hijab, you might have to tell her, okay, tie your hair with that, tie your hair, don't expose your hair. And then when her iman grows, said, okay, put on a hijab and don't expose your neck and your ears. You might have to give her the dawah in stages like that. Maybe you cannot come down with her all at once with everything. The reformation has to come in stages. So when the Kafirs of Mecca complain why Allah didn't send the Quran down all at once, I said to you, I have in front of me 10 reasons why Allah didn't reveal the Quran all at once. I've given you the example of alcohol. Allah said in the first ayah, Baqarah 219, the evil of alcohol is more than the good. Surah Nisa verse 43, Allah said, don't come to Salah when you are drunk. Ma'idah 90, Allah said, Fajtanibu, leave it off. Ma'idah 90 is the final ayah that says alcohol is haram. The Prophet said anybody who takes intoxicants will have no Salah for 40 days and 40 nights. And this covers weed. If you smoke weed, you have no Salah for 40 days and 40 nights. It covers crack cocaine and heroin. So don't think it's only the liquid alcohol, the intoxicant which is liquid. No, it covers weed and heroin and crack cocaine. Because the hadith said, Kullu muskir khamr wa kullu khamr haram. Anything that befogs the mind is khamr, and every khamr is haram. I know some of you like weed. Some of you like weed. How do I know? Because I talk to you in private PM. But if you smoke weed, you have no Salah for 40 days and 40 nights. The fourth reason why Allah sent the Quran down in piecemeal is to correct the mistakes of the Prophet. The person taking notes, the fourth reason why Allah sent the Quran down in stages, to correct the mistakes of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. To correct the mistakes of the Prophet. The first mistake, he took captives at Badr, and it was a mistake. And Allah corrected him in Surah 8 verse 67. If a Shiite was in the room, he would leave the room and said, Shaikh Faisal offended me. The Prophet never made any mistake in his lifetime. That would be the attitude of a Shiite. The Rasul took captives at Badr, and Allah corrected him in Surah Al-Anfal verse 67. ما كان للنبي أن يكون له أسرى حتى يثخن في الأرض. It's not proper for a prophet to take captives until he creates a great slaughter among his enemies in the land, until he makes the earth warm with blood. The second mistake, Tawbah 84, when he prayed over Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Tawbah 84, when he prayed over the grand Munafiq of Medina, the man who slandered Aisha, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. Allah said, Surah Tawbah verse 84, وَلَا تَصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِهِ إِنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَاتُوا وَهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Don't pray over them as of today. Don't even stand by their grave. They died rejecting faith in Allah and His Messenger. They died as fasiqun. This was a correction for the Prophet. If a Shiite was in the room, he would have left the room and said, I went to Shaikh Faisal's room and he offended me. Because he said the Prophet made a mistake. The Prophet never made any mistake in his lifetime. He was ma'soom min al-khata. He was infallible. The third mistake of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam can be found in Surah 66 verse 1, in which he had a wife called Maria. Well, she was a concubine, not a wife. He didn't marry her. And she kept honey in her room, and the Prophet went in the room to drink the honey, and he stayed longer than necessary, and he made love to his concubine. It was Aisha's night. Hafsa saw him coming out of the room. The Prophet told Hafsa not to tell Aisha, but Hafsa told Aisha. My experience with women is that they can't keep a secret. I don't know about other brothers, that's my experience. And Aisha said, your mouth smells funny. like maghafir, and the Prophet said, I only drank honey, and she said, still your mouth smells funny. And the Rasul said, I will never drink honey again. When the Prophet said, I will never drink honey again, it was a mistake, because honey is important for the Ummah. It has antibiotics, and it's impossible to go to a supermarket and there is no olive oil or honey on the shelves. Impossible. That's how important honey is. So for the Prophet to say, I won't drink honey, his Ummah will follow him and they would miss out on honey, which is important. So Allah revealed Surah 66, in which Allah Ta'ala said in this Surah, Ya ayyuhan nabi, lima tuharrim ma ahalallahu lak, tabtaghi mardata azwajik, wallahu ghafur rahim. O Prophet, why do you forbid for yourself that which Allah has made halal for you, seeking to please your wives, your consorts, and Allah is the most forgiving, the most merciful. So this is another mistake of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran came down to correct the mistake. The fourth mistake is when the blind man came to him and said, O Muhammad, teach me the things Allah taught you. And he frowned and turned away from the blind man because he was interrupted. He was busy giving dawah to the leaders of Quraysh. And the leaders of Quraysh used to shun the Prophet. But today, they decided to listen to the Prophet. And while they were listening to the Prophet, the blind man came and interrupted him. And he frowned and turned away. Surah 80. Abasa wa tawalla and ja'ahu al-ama. He frowned and turned away because the blind man came to him. This is another mistake of the Prophet, which was corrected by the Holy Quran. I've given you 4 examples. I've given you 4 examples of how the Quran was revealed to correct the mistakes of the Prophet. But if a Shiite was in the room, he would have left the room and said, Shaikh Faisal has offended me because he said the Prophet Muhammad made mistakes, and the Prophet Muhammad did not make any mistakes in his lifetime. He was free from mistakes. Ma'soom min al-khata. This would have been a statement coming from a Shiite because they believe the Prophet Muhammad was perfect, he didn't make mistakes. We continue with our tafsir. The Kafirs of Mecca complain why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. And I have in front of me 10 reasons why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. The 5th reason, to answer the questions of the Sahabas. The 5th reason why Allah chose to reveal the Quran in stages, to answer the questions of the Sahabas. Okay, Masoom means infallible. Put in bracket infallible. Infallible means to be free from mistakes. Masoom means infallible, to be free from mistakes. Now, the 5th reason why Allah revealed the Quran in stages is to answer the questions of the Sahabas. The Sahabas asked the Prophet about orphans. Baqarah 220. How should we deal with orphans? The reason why they questioned the Prophet about many things is because they were pious and they didn't want to overstep the limits. Baqarah 220, they questioned the Prophet about orphans. Allah said, don't steal the wealth of the orphans. Don't touch the wealth of the orphans. To steal from the orphan is one of the 7 major sins. Then they asked the Prophet about menses, how to deal with women on their menses. Because the Jews of Medina, when a woman is on her menses, they treat her like a leper. According to Sharia law, when a woman is on her menses, everything is allowed except intercourse. She can even cook your meal. Kissing is allowed as well. Everything is allowed except intercourse when a woman is on her menses. That is Sharia law. But the Jews, they treat her like a leper. Baqarah 220 is about the orphans, and Baqarah 222 is talking about the menses. Baqarah 222, 222. Then they asked the Prophet about gambling. Baqarah 219. Baqarah 219, they asked the Prophet about gambling. Baqarah 222, they asked the Prophet about menses. Where is the ayah? Baqarah 219, they asked the Prophet about gambling. They asked the Prophet about menses. Baqarah 222. Where's the ayah about menses? Did you post it? I don't see the ayah. Please post the ayahs quicker than that. Baqarah 222 is talking about menses. Allah said, don't go to women on their menses. It is, if you go to a woman when she's on her menses, you have to give away 4¼ grams of gold in charity. You have to give away 4¼ grams of gold in charity because you slept with a woman on her menses. So the Quran was revealed in. Then they asked the Prophet about booty, Surah 8. Anfal verse 1. They asked the Prophet about booty. They asked him about booty, they asked him about the orphans, they asked him about menses, they asked him about gambling, they asked him about fighting in the holy months, Baqarah 217. Baqarah 217 is talking about fighting in the holy months. If you slept with a woman on her menses, you have to pay an atonement, which is 4¼ grams of gold. How much is an ounce of gold? Can you calculate it? How much you have to give away in charity? 4¼ grams of gold. 4¼ grams of gold if you slept with a woman on her menses. So the fifth reason why Allah revealed the Quran in stages is to answer the concerns of the Sahabas. They used to ask the Prophet questions on a daily basis. And the Prophet had to depend on Allah to answer the questions. So Allah answered the question with the Quran. The sixth reason is to answer the questions of the kuffar. The sixth reason is to answer the questions of the kuffar. Why Allah sent the Quran down in stages. For example, Surah 17 verse 85. They question the Prophet about the ruh, the human soul. Surah 17 verse 85. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. They ask you about the human soul, tell them this matter is about your Lord and we didn't give you knowledge except a little. You were only given a little knowledge. Qalila. They ask the Prophet about the people of the cave, the sleepers in the cave. And Allah revealed Surah the cave to answer the question about those who were sleeping in the cave. Allah revealed Surah the cave because the pagan Arabs, they passed by Medina on the way from Syria as traders. And the Jews of Medina said, if you want to test him to see if he's a real prophet, ask him about the people of the cave. So the Quran came down to answer the questions of the kuffar that they posed to the Prophet. The seventh reason why Allah revealed the Quran in stages, to answer problems and dilemmas of the Prophet. To answer the problems and the dilemmas when the Prophet was faced with a dilemma and he didn't know what to do. An example of a dilemma: when Aisha was accused of having an affair, he didn't know what to believe. He was behaving cold towards Aisha. And Aisha was puzzled. She didn't know why the Prophet suddenly changed towards her and behaved cold towards her. So she asked permission to go and stay in the house of her mother, Ruman. And the mother of Aisha was different from the mother of Asma, even though they were sisters, and Asma was 10 years older than Aisha. So the Prophet didn't know what to believe when the rumor broke that his wife had an affair. So the Prophet had to wait for Allah to clear her name. And Allah cleared her name with Surah 24 verse 11. Allah said that what the hypocrites of Medina said about Aisha, it is an ifk. The word ifk means a big lie. And the reason why the hypocrite accused Aisha of having an affair, he was trying to disgrace the Prophet. His aim and objective was to disgrace the Prophet. Because if your wife having an affair, that means you have failed in the bedroom. That's why a woman have an affair, if the husband failed in the bedroom. So he think he can disgrace the Prophet by disgracing Aisha. Who started the rumor? Abdullah ibn Ubay. Why he hated the Prophet? Because he claimed the Prophet took away his kingdom. He became the king with no throne. And he carried a permanent vendetta against the Prophet. Because when the Prophet migrated to Medina, he took away his influence. He became the king with no throne. When the rumor broke that Aisha had an affair, the Prophet had to depend upon Allah to tell the Prophet if the rumor is true or false. So this is the other reason why Allah revealed the Quran in stages, to answer the dilemma of the Prophet. The Prophet was in a dilemma. He didn't know what to believe. Did my wife have an affair? He was behaving cold towards her. And then Allah revealed Surah 24 verse 11 to tell the Prophet what the hypocrites are saying about Aisha. It is an ifk, a big lie. Your wife didn't have an affair. Another example of the Prophet being in a dilemma and he didn't know what to do. The men who did not go to the battle of Tabuk. The 3 men who didn't go to the battle of Tabuk. The Prophet did not know how to deal with the problem of these 3 men who stayed behind, they lagged behind, and they did not go to the battle of Tabuk. I think you know their names. I quickly give their names. Ka'b ibn Malik, that's the first one. The second one is Hilal ibn Umayyah, and the third one was Marara ibn Rabi. These 3 men, they lagged behind and didn't join the caravan to go to Tabuk expedition. The Prophet didn't speak to them for 50 days. And then Allah revealed Surah Tawbah to say that they are forgiven. Tawbah 117. Surah Tawbah 117. Surah 9. Allah said, I have accepted your Tawbah. So this is another example of why Allah revealed the Quran in stages, to answer the dilemma of the Prophet. The Prophet was stuck with a dilemma and he did not know what to do. The 3 men who didn't go to the battlefield, the Tabuk expedition, they lagged behind. How should I treat these 3 men? The Prophet had to wait for the verdict from Allah. People are saying, wait for Allah to reveal Surah. The 8th reason why Allah chose to reveal the Quran in stages, to make it easy for the Prophet to receive. When the revelation used to come to the Prophet, he used to sweat profusely. It was difficult for the Prophet. The Prophet, used to sweat profusely when the Quran came down. So Allah revealed the Quran surah by surah, ayah by ayah, to make it easy for the Prophet to receive. Because when the Quran used to come down to the Prophet, it was so difficult for the Prophet, at times he would sweat profusely. So because of that, Allah said in Surah 59, verse 21, وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ وَتِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالِ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Had we sent down this Quran on a mountain, you would surely have seen it humble itself and rent asunder by the fear of Allah. So if this Quran had Allah sent it down on a mountain, it would reduce to powder and dust. So how can you send the Quran down all at once upon Muhammad? It's too much for Muhammad to bear. Because when the Quran came down, surah by surah, ayah by ayah, the Prophet used to sweat profusely. It was difficult for the Prophet to bear. So how can you send the Quran down upon Muhammad all at once? He could not handle the revelation all at once. So the kuffar of Makkah were complaining why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. This is the 8th reason. The 9th reason, to make the heart of the Prophet firm. To make the heart of the Prophet firm. To strengthen the heart of the Prophet. And this reason was given by Allah Ta'ala in the Holy Quran. In Surah 25 verse 32. Allah said, لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. Surah 25 verse 32. We sent down the Quran to you in stages to make your heart firm, that we may strengthen your heart thereby. We sent it down to you in parts, bits by bits, parts by parts, in piecemeals, in stages to make your heart firm. لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. The 10th reason why Allah revealed the Quran in stages to refute the kuffar, to refute the accusations of the kuffar. That's the 10th and last reason, to refute the accusations of the kuffar. To refute the accusations of the kuffar. So when they gathered in a council, a satanic council, they said, we are going to slander Muhammad, but let us be united. What will we call him? Some say a poet. They didn't accept. Some say, how can we call him a poet? Muhammad, he practiced what he preaches. Poets don't practice what they preach. They make up rhyming words to make money. The Hollywood and Bollywood people, they sing about love and they have the most divorces. Because for them it's all about fame and fortune. How can you call Muhammad a poet? A poet doesn't practice what he preaches. So they say, let us call him a magician, a soothsayer, a fortune teller. The person who headed the council to slander Muhammad was Walid ibn Mughira. And Allah spoke about him in the Quran. Surah 74 verses 18 to 26. Surah 74 verse 18 to 26. Innahu fakkara wa qaddar. Allah is refuting the kafir here. Innahu fakkara wa qaddar. فقتل كيف قدر ثم قتل كيف قدر ثم نظر ثم عبس وبصر. Allah Ta'ala is telling you, verily he thought and he plotted, and so let him be cursed how he plotted, and once more let him be cursed how he plotted. Then he thought, then he frowned, and he looked in a bad-tempered way. Then he turned back and was proud. ثم أدبر واستكبر فقال إن هذا إلا سحر يؤثر. Then he turned back and was proud. Then he said, this is nothing but magic from that of old. So they decided in the council they will call the message of Muhammad, the Quran, magic. That was what they decided. Let's call it magic. Sihrun. In hadha illa qawl al-bashar. This is nothing but the word of a human being. Sa'uslihi saqar. I will cast him into the hellfire. So Allah Ta'ala revealed the Quran in stages to refute the accusations of the kuffar that they launch against Muhammad. These are the 10 reasons, brothers and sisters, why the Holy Quran was revealed in stages. And the Kafirs of Mecca, they complained, why did Allah reveal the Quran in stages? Allah even said, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينَ. And your companion Muhammad is not Majnoon. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينَ. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينَ. وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Surah 81 verse 22 to 26. Surah 81 verses 22 to 26. وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ. Your companion Muhammad is not mad. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينَ. He saw the angel Gabriel on the horizon with his 600 wings. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِضَنِينٍ. And he, Muhammad, withholds not a knowledge of the unseen. وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. And this Quran is not the speech of the shaitan, the outcast, the cursed. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? Where are you going? Allah hardly asks questions in the Quran, but one of the questions Allah asks in the Quran is, where are you going? فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? There are two highways, paradise and hellfire. One is steep, one is flat. The flat one, which is easy to travel by, it takes you to the hellfire. The steep one, it takes you to paradise. So which one will you follow? There are two motorways, two highways, two freeways. So where are you going? فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ? So these are the 10 reasons why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. And the kuffar of Makkah, they complained, why did Allah reveal it in stages? Kafirs, they like to put their nose into affairs which do not concern them. It's not your business why Allah revealed the Quran in stages. Your business is to believe in it and practice it and follow it. That's your concern. A kafir will always concern himself with affairs which is not his business. For example, they concern themselves with the marriage of the Prophet with Zainab bin Jahsh, or the marriage of the Prophet with Aisha. These marriages took place 1400 years ago. Why are you, the kuffar, making it your business? You need to concern yourself with your domestic problems. STD, sexually transmitted diseases, have become pandemic in your society because of sexual perversion. Why don't you worry about that? Why do you worry about the marriage of Aisha and the Prophet? Or the marriage of Aisha with Zainab bin Jahsh? STD has become rife. Rife means a lot. STD has become pandemic and an epidemic in your society. You should worry about that. Why do you worry about something that took place 1400 years ago? It's not your business. Worry about your domestic problems. Your Catholic priests have made front page news every day abusing boys. Worry about that. Your Catholic priests, they make front page news every day abusing little boys. Worry about that. A black American preacher who is popular came to Jamaica. He was caught in a hotel with two 14-year-old girls. He took them in there for a threesome. Worry about that. Your preachers. Alcohol has become rife in your society. The Colombian cartels have flooded your country with crack cocaine. Worry about that. Why don't you worry about your domestic problems? Your homeless people are hungry. One of them a black man ate the face of a white man. The black man was starving to death in Florida. He ate the face of a white man. 80% of his face. Because he was homeless and hungry, starving. Worry about that, your domestic problems. A kafir will never worry about things that matters to him. He only worry about things which is not his business. Worry about your domestic problems. Every ill of the society has become rife in your community. Worry about that. Why do you worry about things which is not your business? Even in the time of the Prophet, they worry about the Quran. Why Allah sent it down in stages? That's not your business. Your business is to believe in it and practice it. The Kafirs of today, they have the same mentality. They worry about things which don't concern them. And things that concern them, they ignore. How pitiful, appalling, and pathetic is the state of the Kafir. A Kafir likes to tell Allah who to bless. He likes to tell Allah who he should make a prophet. And he wants to tell Allah how to reveal the Quran. He wants to tell Allah who to bless with knowledge or with money, with wealth or with knowledge. He wants to tell Allah who to make a prophet. He wants to tell Allah how to reveal the Quran. He wants to tell Allah what to make haram and what to make halal. He wants to tell Allah, why didn't you make homosexuality halal? Why did it destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? He wants to tell Allah how to structure the Sharia, what to make haram, what to make halal. That's how the kafir is. They are called busybody. They are very, very much busybody. They want to dictate to Allah how to reveal the Quran and how to structure the Sharia. Brothers and sisters, this is our tafsir for today. Maybe you can make the topic, why did Allah reveal the Quran in stages? I will take 5 questions. Please continue to invite your families and friends to the room. I'm taking 5 questions in regards to the tafsir. Why did Allah reveal the Quran in stages? Okay, that is our topic for today. Bismillah, is it allowed in Islam, the nasheeds, because Shaykh Ibn Baz, Shaykh Faisal, Shaykh Albani, and more major scholars that nasheeds is haram. Also, Sufis most done this, and the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ arrived in Medina, when he made hijrah, and the followers in Medina sang for him. Tala al-Badr alayna is da'if. Nasheeds are halal, nasheeds are not haram, as long as there are no string instruments in the nasheed. Nasheeds are halal, they are not haram, especially the jihadi nasheeds with drums and guns. They are halal. So nasheeds are halal, they are not haram, and you can use nasheeds for aqiqah, for Eid and aqiqah. The two Eids and aqiqah. The nasheeds are halal, they are not haram, as long as there are no string instruments and wind instruments in the nasheed. My question is, I live in Canada and I want to drive taxi in my city. Taxi is haram to drive or not haram because of weekend was busy. To work as a taxi driver in Dar Harb is halal, it is not haram. And those who say it is haram, they are trying to use Islam to strangle the Muslims and to deprive them of a livelihood. To drive a taxi in Dar Harb, Europe and America is halal, it's not haram. And those who say it is haram, they are passing fatwa with no knowledge, and they are trying to use Islam to strangle the Muslims and to deprive them of a livelihood. Next question, please. Assalamu alaikum. There is a drug very common among the Somalian community called qat. Could you clear up if this is also haram, as many among this community believe is permissible? Qat is an intoxicant and it is haram. And men who take it, they always become impotent after a while. Qat is an intoxicant like tobacco, and it is haram. And men who chew those leaves, they always become impotent and lazy after a while. That's my understanding of qat. And you can take it up with your local sheikh. Where I study in Saudi Arabia, we pronounce qat haram. The ulama of Najd that I study under, Muhammad ibn Saud in Riyadh, they pronounce qat haram. It's a form of intoxicant. To chew qat or to chew tobacco leaves is haram because it befogs the mind, and it is khamr, and every khamr is haram. Assalamu Shaykh, is there any ibadat strongly recommended in Sunnah to be done in the months of Rajab and Shaban? The months leading up to Ramadan, the Prophet used to fast a lot in those months in preparing his stomach for the fast of Ramadan. The best fast to do in these months, the month of Shaban, for example, is the fast of David, and that is to fast one day and to skip one day, to fast one day and to skip one day. When the Prophet recommended the fast of David, somebody said to the Prophet, I can do better than that. And the Prophet said, there is no fast better than that fast, the fast of David. No fast is better than that, the fast of David. And that is to fast one day and skip one day. So the month of Shaban, the month before Ramadan, you fast to prepare your stomach for Ramadan, and the best fast to do is the fast of David, which I have just explained to you. I'm taking 5 questions. Where's the last question? Our sister is asking for the past few months. She has been getting a lot of waswasa. She is thinking about things that are classed as kufr, and she is worried why she doesn't have any doubts about Islam. She is a practicing sister. What is your suggestion for her? This sister, she needs to get married, and marriage is half of her deen. When she gets married, which is half of her deen, all these problems will go away. Women who are single, they have jinn problems. The jinns even come and have sex with them when they're single. Yeah, so all the sisters who are single, they always have jinn problems. They get a lot of waswasa, the jinn harass them when they're sleeping, and many other problems that they encounter. So since marriage is half your deen, when you get married, it will diminish the fitna of the jinn that you are experiencing, which is the waswasa. You need to do dhikr because Allah said when you don't do dhikr, the jinn will harass you. Ya qareen. Surah Zukhruf verse 36. Surah 43 verse 36. So when you don't do dhikr, remember Allah, the shaitan will harass you. Surah 43 verse 36. So by you doing a lot of dhikr and ibadah, they will harass you less. Get married. Marriage is half your deen. When you get married, the jinn will leave you alone. And women who have jinn problems, who are single, when you get married and you consummate, the jinn will leave you alone. The consummation will drive away the jinn. But as long as you remain single, the jinn thinks you are fair game for him. And jinns have crushes on women, in case you did not know. So as long as you remain single, the jinn thinks you are fair game for him. When you get married and consummate, the consummation will chase away the jinn. That seems to be the last question. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik.